It is Sunday, January 18th. I am at the Cornstalk Lab Theater in Peoria, Illinois to see 39 Steps, which I saw a live reading of the radio play version of 1 week ago. I did not care for it, so hopefully the stage version is more enjoyable for me. Okay, the 39 Steps, but the stage version this time, not the radio version. I realized I forgot to show my ticket in my parking lot video, so I apologize. So, in the spirit of similar but slightly different, I've got my dog with me here today rather than my cat. Can you say hi? Hi. So, I made the prediction last week when I saw the live reading of the radio play, The 39 Steps, that while I didn't particularly care for that production, that I thought the story was strong enough that I would like a stage version, of which I knew there was one coming up near me. And I was right. I quite liked the stage version of this show. There were, there's there's a lot more elements going on that I think helped out a lot. And like, obviously, it's a staged show as opposed to four people reading lines off of a paper. And that, I don't say that to diminish the work of those actors, but it's just clearly very different. And I'm a very visual person. My cat is about to attack my dog. No, she's gonna be nice. They never are this close together. The dog's chill. The cat, not so much. Okay, she's gonna. No, don't hit her. Stop it. Poor dog. So this was. I keep meaning to look this up, and I always forget to. The type of theater that this was performed at was a square stage with chairs all around. In my head, I think of that as a lab theater or a black box theater because that's what they were called at my college. I'm pretty sure black box refers more to like the lack of proper props and sets and things like that, which I think is distinct from the center stage being surrounded by chairs. I just think a lot of times those types of stages utilize black box techniques more because you don't have a backdrop and things like that. So someone can tell me in the comments if there are official terms for that kind of thing, but I would call it a lab theater. They call this building the Cornstalk Theater. They have a big tent that they do in the warmer months. Their productions in there, and they call this the lab theater. But I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. So there's only 3 rows of seats on each side. It's a pretty small theater. And when I was choosing my seat on the seating chart, I picked the middle row because I thought I didn't want to be right next to the stage, but I didn't want to be too far away. And man, those rows, they're not very deep. I was glad that I picked a corner seat so that I had lots of leg room. But there were quite a bit of set pieces that they were moving on and off. They were utilizing all 4 corners. And 2 of the doorways went out towards the lobby side, and the 2 of them went to kind of some back rooms. And I don't want to say distracted, because I don't think it took away from the show for me, but I was very interested in the lighting setup that they had. And it was there were kind of some patterns to it. Like there was kind of an outer, I'm gonna motion this way, but imagine that it's up top, right? So there was like an outer square that had like what more traditional spotlights, what I would call can lights. I don't know if that's accurate either. But then there was like a 3x3 grid inside that had some like traditional dimmable white lights, but also like LED light. I don't know if they'd be called cans. Also, they were the thin ones the kind of thing that I see as a musician, I see a lot of people using, and I see on like um, websites like Guitar Center and stuff that are trying to sell people their own lighting. I don't know if they're the same kind of lights, or if they just look similar to the outside to someone like me that doesn't know the difference. But they were, newer LED things that they could change the colors and do all sorts of fun stuff with. So the staging helped me get invested in the story. The physical set pieces, the lighting was very interesting for me to keep track of. And they utilized quite a bit more sound effects. They were using electronic sound system for their sound effects rather than a live person doing sound effects, which I guess makes sense as a distinction between a stage show and a radio play. But it was just a lot easier for me to get immersed into the story. Again, I think another thing I pointed out in my video about the other version I saw, the 4 actors were just sitting on the stage in the church before the show started, and then the show started, and they just stood up and started doing it. These 4 actors were not seen before the show. They came in, and the show started, and that was that. So I think that helped me also. And again, another thing I mentioned is just that when some of them weren't in the scene, they left the stage. Whereas on the radio play, all 4 of them just sat in plain view the whole time. There were costume changes in this, which I hypothesized, as opposed to just changing hats. There was also a fair amount of changing hats, but it was played more for laughs. Not in the sense of I'm changing my hat, isn't that funny, but in the sense of many characters interacting with many other characters, all played by 2 or 3 people in a short amount of time. And the combination of some costume elements and hats and the staging and the set pieces. So I liked this version a whole lot more. I was really glad, obviously, that I was correct about that, because this show was significantly farther away from the last show. And while not an expensive show, this show cost money, and the last one was free. So if I had not enjoyed this version either, and had seen 2 versions of a show and didn't like either one, then I would have been unhappy with myself. There were quite a few, how do I want to say this? The plot wasn't exactly the same. Like the main story was the same, but it seemed like maybe there were additional scenes in this one, or maybe I just forgot them from the last one. This one was certainly much longer. I forget how long the first one was, but it was, I want to say, like 70 minutes, like just a little bit over an hour. This one was 2 hours, including a 15-minute intermission. And I also noted their 15-minute intermission was actually 15 minutes. I have noticed that some places will tell you one time, but then usually hold it for longer. I have mixed feelings on that. I like 15 minutes to be 15 minutes. So I think there was more added in, but it could be a lot of that time was just the scene changes were pretty frequent. And it was both the actors themselves as well as a few stagehands that were changing out the set pieces. But another element that helped me enjoy this one more is that, I don't know if I mentioned it in the video because I didn't want to be mean, but at the last production I saw, it seemed like the actors, it was a lot of accent work. And it was the kind of accent work that if you're in high school and you have a friend that thinks he's really good at accents and does all the basic cliche ones, it all kind of felt like 4 people doing that. Whereas this one, it felt like 4 people, maybe not intentionally doing bad accents, but being aware that the accents weren't good, that they were cliche, but it was campy and it was tongue-in-cheek, and it was, again, not directly acknowledged, but it felt like everyone knew what was going on, and it was more just like, hey, this is just to help distinguish between the characters, as opposed to, hey, isn't this cool that I can do this to play all these different characters? I don't know if that makes sense, but where it came from felt different, and different enough, and different in the right ways, that the way I experienced it was more positive. Um, the only other real significant thing was that there was what I would call a stink bug. I don't know if they have a more accurate. I'm sure they have a more accurate name, but I don't know. There might be other bugs that other people think of as stink bugs that are different than what I think of as stink bugs. But one of those kind of wide but pretty thin. I've usually got a few around my house, but there was a stink bug that at one point got on the back of the jacket of the main character, and one of the chairs that he was sitting in for a couple of the scenes. Actually, it was a bed, but it was in the same spot as one of the chairs. He was like sitting and leaning back right by the corner that I was at. And I was just watching this bug climb up this guy's jacket, and I like thought it was going to go inside his collar, and I was like, is he going to feel it? Is that, is that going to disrupt the show? Is his co-star going to see it and get rid of it? And it never led to anything happening. I don't know what happened to the bug. At one point, he left the room because he was not in the next scene, and came back, and either it was still on him, or it came back, or there was another one. I know there was at least one more because it kept flying up into the lights. So that was kind of a fun bonus game for me to experience. The only other thing is, while they were taking the scenery off, they usually did it in a humorous way. Like the actors, if it was the actors doing it rather than the stagehands, it would be kind of very energetic and bumbling and sometimes they would have sound effects playing, like crashing noises or a screeching cat or something like that as they were leaving the room. I'm pretty sure one of the first changes, they legitimately dropped and broke a glass that was being used as a prop because it was right by the door that I was at, and I looked and I saw it, and it was either the glass or there was a lamp in that scene also, but it didn't sound like it was coming from the speaker. I feel like I heard glass shatter, and I looked at the floor, and it looked like there was glass shattered on the floor. So that's not great for them. But the sound effects of crashing and stuff like that happened in later scene changes. So I kept looking back, and I'm like, okay, that one was fake, that one was fake, that one. But I think that first one was real. So, well, yeah, I don't... There were other small changes, or maybe not changes, but differences, like the name of the female spy at the beginning. In the radio play, it was... I can't remember her first name. I want to say Anastasia, but that's not right. Annabella, maybe? Whatever it was. The last name in the radio play was Smith. And, like, there was a running joke about she had this very thick accent while saying her first name, Annabella Smith, and like, a last name that didn't fit her or her accent or her first name. But in this one, it's Schmidt, and so there's no like comedy or gags or bits or anything about that. It's just taken that's her name. So I was like, maybe that was something that was put into a radio version to have some auditory humor going on. And another kind of bit that wasn't present in the stage version, which I don't think made it better or worse. It was just interesting to note. In the radio version, I don't remember the name of the place. I thought in the radio version that it was the name of the town, but in the stage version, it seems like it's the name of a house near the town. So I don't know if I was just wrong or if they're different, but I don't remember what it was, but it was something like Nalek Schlacht, something like that. Again, just something that sounds weird and funny. But in the radio play, there was a running gag that whenever someone said that, they would spit on that last Schlacht, whatever it was. And the first time that someone said that, the character, like, not really, but he reacted as if they spit in his face, right? And he was like wiping it off. And so then every time another character would start saying it, he would like duck or get out of the way or whatever. And then one time he didn't, and he got spit on again, but it was like 5 seconds after someone else had said it, and he did duck. So it was like, why did he choose not to then? That was weird. That distracted me in that show. None of that is in the stage version that I saw, the name of that place is still in there, but there's no running gag about people spitting while they say it. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to be in a radio play because people wouldn't see that if it was really a radio play. So I don't know if that's something that was just added by the actors in that particular production. Because it would make more sense in a stage play where the actors are supposed to be moving and interacting with each other. So, like I said, I don't think that makes it better or worse. I don't think it was that funny of a joke. I just found it odd that it was in what should have been the auditory version, a visual running gag. But maybe it was just something that those performers added in to add a little bit more going on. One of the other big differences, not really, but in the radio version that I saw, at one point they mentioned airplanes, police using airplanes to search for this character, and one of the actors just puts on his pilot hat and does his airplane and runs around. He ran around the church and then he came back. And in this one, they had stagehands come out with little tiny like cardboard airplanes flying around, and there were shooting sound effects, and they would shake the plane when he was shooting. But then like it turned into like a Godzilla thing where the character like swatted them down like he was giant and they were small. I don't really know what was going on with that, but it was funny to watch, and I don't think it took away from the narrative because they just lose him in the fog. Which, when to show the fog, they just had one of the stagehands come out with a sign that said fog. I thought that was pretty funny. And speaking of hats, again, I don't know if I mentioned this in my video about the last one, but I know when I was talking to people about it, one of the only characters in the radio play who repeats who he is verbally is a policeman. And he didn't have any kind of a policeman hat. And I'm like, you have all these different hats. He had a hat, just not a policeman hat. Like, you guys have all these different hats for all these different characters. But something as recognizable as a policeman's hat, especially, and again, I don't know if I said this in the video, but when I was talking to my friends about it, I was like, what I would call like a bobby hat, right? Like a British policeman, constable, whatever. Those tall, round hat. I'm like, you couldn't get one of those to make that more distinct? And all the policemen in this stage show had those hats. So I was very pleased to see that. But I keep acting like we're going to finish up, and then I keep talking. I'm going to actually finish up now. Really enjoyed this version. Like, not just that I didn't dislike it, I actually enjoyed it. And this is a show I would go see again, and that I would suggest, like I would recommend to other people. I think it's funny. And the venue, the chairs, I was a little worried at first. They're not built in. They're just sitting on the floor or the risers. And they looked flimsy, and I'm a big, heavy guy, so there's lots of times that I will avoid a seat for fear of breaking it. But as I ease myself down, they feel a lot sturdier than they look. So I wasn't worried about that, but they're not the most comfortable. They kind of got the plastic straps, like a lawn chair. And then the arms and the leg, it's all just metal tubing. So it's not, there's arm rests or arms, but like they're not flat. It's just a tube. So luckily nobody was anywhere near me. Nobody was in front of me, behind me, or next to me. So I could kind of stretch out and stuff. But other than that, the venue was perfectly fine. And I know they do a lot of shows. So I hope some of the other ones, I gotta double check what they are, but I hope they appeal to me, and I hope I have some time to go back and see it, because I'd like to sit on another side and kind of see if that makes a difference at all. Because there were a couple scenes where it felt like I was behind the actors. I was behind the chair or behind the bed. But I feel like you get a little of that anywhere, but they mix it up enough to where like I just didn't notice when it wasn't happening. I only noticed when it did happen, which was only twice. So I don't think that was a problem. There were a few like visual gags that they were doing that I couldn't see. But I don't think it wasn't anything super important or, super relevant to the plot. I don't feel like I missed out on anything by not being able to see it. I'm just aware that I wasn't able to see it. But Good show, good venue, good experience for me. That's enough. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.